I think that even from the first reactions I've heard from several participants here, except for the reference to the meal, they were learning, you were learning actually some new things. And what is most amazing, some of your colleagues who live in Israel actually also admitted to learning some new things about this area. And this is exactly the goal of the goal of the strip and the goal of all our activities with vis-a-vis, be it foreign journalists, be it different VIP guests or groups coming from all around the world. We want people to be able to see and to judge with their own eyes. And as you see, this is not just a showplace. The moment we sat down to eat, there was another group of, I understand, some historians, some kind of society that are traveling.
Military history.
Excuse me? Military history. Wonderful. Thank you. And I understand you're part of this. Okay, so there are groups coming, there are people coming, and inside Israel and outside Israel, we want to see life in Judea and Samaria for whatever it is. Then people can draw their own conclusions, but based on facts, based on pictures, based on conversation without interpreters, with local residents. And I want to just thank you very much for joining us here on this trip. I'm not leaving. I had yogurt, I had goat cheese, but I'll continue with you to the next couple of stops, and we'll have more meetings and more opportunities to talk to each other. So thank you, and let's show that we are organized and continue to Itamar where people are waiting for us. Thanks.
Thanks for the opportunity.
How to think or what to think. It's about learning things, seeing things, talking without interpreters to the residents of this area. We are not pretending the conflict is not here, but you can probably talk about certain solutions only if they're based on facts and on knowledge.
You hope that showing them a different picture of the people who live in Judea and Samaria is going to change their opinion?
I'm not in the business of changing the opinion. I'm in the business of showing what life is like, showing the facts, and I would bet you that none of them thought of it, and in many cases the Palestinians being the bosses of the Jewish Israelis. All these things are news. Probably they're not the solution for the conflict, but they're definitely part of the picture.
Everyone, we're passing. This is the home of the Fogel family. This is where the massacre occurred. We're going to go behind the house so I can describe to you how the terrorists came through into the community. First of all, I'd like to tell you that, as you can see, this is a new neighborhood. This neighborhood was completed only a year ago. The Fogel family lived in Gush Katif. They lived in a Jewish community in Gaza, and they were disengaged. They were removed from their homes in Gaza in order to provide the Palestinians that area with no Jews in it. And this was their first home after they had lost their home in Gush Katif. They moved into this home, and they lived here. All of the bars that you see on the windows were only placed here in the neighborhood after this attack. The terrorists who came from the village of Awarta, which is down below us, you can see over here to the south, this village Awarta, Leah Goldschmidt told you that in this village are ancient burial places. Residents of this village, there are many residents here who are affiliated with a very horrific terrorist organization called the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, under the direction of George Habash, where some of the most sick and demented terrorist attacks in history were carried out by that organization. And these two teenagers from the Awad family, who hiked from that village into Itamar and climbed over this security fence and hiked up this mountain, got into this neighborhood. It was on Friday night. They entered this home over here. This home belongs to a young man, a young couple. The man's name is David Pai. They were away for They went to visit his wife's family. The terrorists found that there was no one in the home. They stole a weapon that was there, and then they climbed in the window into this home at about midnight, the daughter of the family, Tamar Fogel, was 12 years old. She was out with her friends on Friday night. They had actually had youth activities. There's a youth organization in this community called Bnei Akiva. And youth who take part in this youth educational group on Friday nights meet with different rabbis, different figures in the community, teach them. Rabbi Fogel was the teacher that Friday night. All of the kids were here in this home only a few hours before the murder. And this little girl went out with her friends after the class. After her father had given the class to her friends, she went out and they were talking and walking around, and she came back at midnight and the door was locked. Nobody answered. She was knocking at the door and the door was locked. The door wasn't really locked when she left, and none of her family members locked the door. The terrorists who entered through the window, everyone was asleep when they came in. There was a child sleeping in the bed under the window. They stepped over the child and entered the home and killed the mother and the father and two of her siblings. They locked the door from the inside, climbed out back out of the window, and as they were leaving the home, they heard the baby crying. And they were afraid that the baby crying would alert attention. They climbed back in the window and they slaughtered the baby. And they climbed out of the window and they left. And this little girl came home and she couldn't get in. And she went crying to a neighbor that she couldn't get in. And the neighbor came to help her. And he climbed in the window and unlocked the door. And it was all dark inside. On Shabbat, we don't turn on the lights. So everything that's dark stays dark. The neighbor heard quiet at home. He opened the lock. The girl came in, the neighbor left. She came in and she found her family dead. That's the story of this massacre.
I would just add two things to that. The terrorists, we were discussing the life sentences, not only didn't express any sorrow, but rather said during the trial that they would repeat what they've done because that was a good thing they did to slaughter a Jewish family. The other thing, on a totally different note, the Fogel family massacre presented us, me personally, was one of the most terrible dilemmas. There was a debate whether to release the pictures from the murder scene. And I do have to share with you that it was a very difficult decision, and I decided to release the pictures. The murder scene, definitely not the most graphic pictures, but the pictures showing what really happened. And I think it was the first time, with all the experience we had in terror attacks, that the government decided to release the pictures. That's usually what we are dealing with from the other side. This Fogel family massacre, even with the terrible record we have in terms of terror attacks, sometimes suicide bombers, and with all the graphic scenes, to me it seems something that people should see, even, as I've said, not in the most graphic form. Doesn't mean that it was a kind of a general decision, but in this specific case, I think, at least talking to some colleagues of yours, I realized that even if they were scared to print or to show the pictures influenced them, and they related to the crime in a proper manner.
Were the pictures printed around the world?
Very few places printed the pictures, and I can justify that. I wanted more editors, journalists, anchors, TV presenters to see the pictures and to realize what happened. I'm not sure that I would myself, being a TV editor or a newspaper editor, put a picture like that in my edition.
Is it true that the people of the Fogel family, some members said that if they gave permission to release the pictures?
Absolutely. I wouldn't do anything of the kind without getting the full permission of the family, and the permission was granted by the parents of both sides.
I just want to join David in thanking everyone who was organizing it, the government press office, and you all for coming. I can't resist the temptation of telling you a political joke. I was so embarrassed that one of the wineries around this area, not near yet, it will happen to you next year, but one of the wineries got the first prize, what they call the gold medal in wine contest in France. And the normal reaction of a normal person, of all the Israeli journalists who were interviewing the owner was, but how come there's this whole BDS campaign, you know, boycott Israel campaign, and you come from this area, how come they gave you the first prize? The guy said, you don't understand. When they taste wine, they are blind. They don't know which winery it comes from. Then they couldn't already back up. So I think, you know what, on a more serious note, this is exactly what is happening in many cases, and this is exactly the reason we want to bring as many people as possible to see with their own eyes. Because what would happen, I mean, I hope I'm not offending anyone, but if some of the footage that many of you have taken during this trip, you would just put without any voiceover or without any comments on the TV, and then we ask, could you please guess where the tape is coming from, where was it taped? Shall we think that only very small minority would say, oh, this is this area, the Judea and Samaria, where they all like fight each other? It's a totally different picture. And this is exactly what we wanted to show. It's not always simple. There is still no solution to the big argument that we have, and you all, and rightly so, asked difficult questions while we were in Itamar. But as we just heard from Nir, life is going on. People live their life. The solution, you know, you can confront a minister with a question, what is your solution? What exactly are you doing to bring the solution closer? People who live here, live their normal life, successful life in many cases, definitely are dreaming about peace, and we all hope that one day it will come. And this is what we wanted to show to you, and thanks to the regional council and everyone involved. And I do have to say one thing. You were talking as if you were in some kind of information project here. These guys are really working. They are really working, and thanks to their efforts, among other things, we could drink this wine because they're hands-on working and helping people in this area. So thank you for that too. Thank you. So see you during our next visit somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you.